So this is the card for the first reading. And then the 2 for the second reading. So you can just throw in a 1, a 2, or both in the chat, however you're feeling. What I always recommend for people, if this is your first time doing this, you're just trying to tune in for some sort of a difference. Do you feel some type of way? Are you feeling a tingling sensation or a gut feeling? Or does anything just pop into your head when I'm showing the backs of these cards? Obviously, the backs are the same. It's not really the point, but it's about the energy that the card gives off because you don't know, I don't know what's on the front. So here are the readings cards for the second reading again. And once you feel clear about it, you can pop it in the chat. It just gives you kind of a game within this reading to practice your intuition. If you would like to do more of that, my class on Wednesday, back by popular demand, finally, feels like it's been forever. It's only been a month and like maybe a week or something. But Wednesday we have my psychic development class, which I do every month. So that is fully just a Q&A mixed with a bunch of games, activities for you to experiment with, not test, experiment with receiving information intuitively using the different psychic clairs. Reminder, in case you missed at the top, the card deck that we are using today is the Moonology Manifestation Oracle deck. We've been using this for like a month now. So we'll see. We'll see what my guides tell me about the next class, if we're going to be using it again. I'm seeing a lot of paperwork, papers flying, like going through tons and tons and tons and tons and tons. It feels like it's more of like a reading, a studying, rather than sorting or organizing. It's just like going through so much information and like really trying to absorb it, trying to study. Like maybe you're feeling like particularly studious during this time or particularly inspired to read or learn. It feels more like that versus I think in some previous weeks there was some imagery around information coming at you. This is different. This is like you're seeking it out. You're trying to learn about something and really understand it at its root. Okay, so what I'm seeing here is like you're flipping through the book, you're flipping, and then all of a sudden you stop on a certain page and like you put a bookmark in it. And it feels like the encouragement here is knowing when it's time to stop, knowing when you've had enough, and it's about creating portions. I know we're talking about a book and not a meal, but portion sizing. So when you are trying to learn, when you are trying to understand, there have to be parts when you stop. You can't keep going all the time because it just will be too much information. But yeah, it's like I'm seeing like you put the bookmark in and so you stop. You're giving yourself a bit of a pause so you can really make sure that you're, another food thing, digesting what you have read thus far, like going back, maybe rereading some of it. Oh, okay, that makes sense. Maybe rereading some of it, having some sort of a recap for yourself, whether it is that you're writing it or you're just trying to summarize so that you really know that you have and understand the thesis before moving forward. So it's a very methodical process in trying to learn and understand whatever this thing is. I want to try to give this some categories for people because it doesn't feel as small as like, oh, I have this one tiny problem, this, screw is loose in my refrigerator. I want to, fix that because it's a little wobbly. It doesn't feel like it's that small of a thing. This learning feels a little bit more big picture and holistic. I'm getting for some people like it's like therapy related. It's like family dynamics and like a lot of it feels definitely like relationship based, not even just like personal development, but like you in the context of how you're interacting with other people. Like there's definitely a cohort here that is focusing on that, and that's like the thing. And there's so many books. There's so many books in that space. Or lectures or webinars or podcasts. Like if the physical reading part like isn't your thing, that there's other ways to get that learning. Something about like milestones. So whether it is that you're trying to get a house or just something that would require effort and understanding over time. I'm getting something about law as well. So there could be some people that legitimately are just like in school, deciding to go back to school, maybe contemplating like getting a second degree or a degree if you never got one, and pursuing that subject matter, which will require years of learning, but it's just kind of like getting that first toe in the water. It doesn't feel like it's like an application process, like you're learning so that you can like write stuff and apply somewhere. It feels more like it's just in that area of study. So it is a very people-oriented sign, which is Aquarius. Last quarter moon in Aquarius, reflect on your priorities. So I find this interesting, given that the subject matter for you, for whatever it is that you are choosing to learn, if you're someone who resonates with this card. The topic, whatever it is that you're reading about, that you're studying, is something that is important. It feels like it's important for you to know, for you to really understand, and to not rush through the process, just to get it done. So inherently, this feels like it is a priority. And I am kind of getting here that maybe if you're uncertain what the thing is for you to learn, it's about looking at whatever your current priorities are, current pain points or areas where you are feeling underdeveloped isn't the right word, but feeling like under fulfilled. So if you feel like you haven't learned something in a while, or you've always been curious about X, Y, and Z thing, well, why isn't that a priority? How can you make it one? It feels like there's a bit of that energy happening with it. Imagery you got for reading one spoke to me and said, literally just enrolled in a new school program. Yeah. So the papers in the studying and learning and acquiring knowledge speaks to me. Great. All right. So there's already, we know there's some people that are in this right now. So just to illustrate a little bit further, depending on who you are, you may already be in some of this energy. So like with Caitlin's example, it's like, oh, like already in a studious mindset, already starting a chapter with new schooling, new education. So maybe you are sitting in that, and maybe you're not. And either this reading will not connect to you at all this entire week, or something will present itself during the course of the week that sparks your interest to actually learn about it. I'm seeing a vial, like something's being extracted out. It doesn't feel like this is, it feels like for some people it may actually be health related, and for other people it's more of just the visual, this idea of extraction, because it's very careful you're not taking everything out at once when you get the diagnostic test done. Like that's kind of the energy that this is giving off. Like if you're doing like a food log, so maybe you're not changing anything, but again, it's like you're running a test, like you're checking like, what am I eating? It's National Nutrition Month. Oh my gosh, I had no idea. One of the readings last week was talking about a 3-week period. Like that last week was like the first steps. It was like deciding, I think, the thing that you wanted. And then this week is like you're starting to take action. Okay, so I'm seeing somebody holding up, we're definitely in the lab here. I'm seeing somebody holding up some different vials. They're holding them up to the light. They're looking at the colors, looking at, how translucent or opaque the fluid is. There are all these different colors. And it feels like it's like one of them is poisonous, but they're not sure which one it is. Like it almost feels like that's like part of like what's being tested is like, what's the toxin? What in my life right now is secretly a toxin? And again, this if you're in the health wing could apply to you. If you're not in the health wing, it's just metaphorical. What is the toxin? What's the thing that is sinister and sneaking below the radar that is not helping me, not serving me, making me feel tired, disoriented, irritable, or angry? It feels like there's a little bit of that, like just feeling like out of balance. What's the trigger? What is the toxin that is causing that, that's facilitating that feeling? Because you can get rid of it. So when we're talking about this toxin image at the beginning, it's like you're legit like holding up the different vials like, I don't know which one's the toxin. They all kind of look similar to me, and that's what I mean. Like it's hidden. It's like it's hidden in plain sight, and it's not necessarily where your mind goes first identifying what the problem is. It's actually something else that like creates the instability, and it feels a bit like whatever the cause is some sort of basic needs being met. So basic needs is like eating, sleeping, hydration, boundaries, boundaries in the sense of respect, boundaries in the sense of also potentially energetic boundaries if you're a little bit more on the spiritual side, respecting your time, respecting your gifts, respecting your contributions, your voice being heard. That's another one. So maybe if like you're feeling like your voice isn't being heard, you're not being allowed to take up space, you're not being allowed to share, to communicate, you're not speaking your truth. It's a classic thing. People that aren't able to fully speak their truth or share what they're supposed to be sharing or be really honest, like your throat is all messed up. You're like, you keep getting sick and it's something with your throat, or you're having like a scratchiness or throat pain. So it's like almost like an energetic manifestation of that. Last quarter moon, so we get another last quarter in Sagittarius, practice gratitude. So kind of like what I was just talking about, that this is a great tactic. This is a strategy that you can use to combat negativity. So if what you're feeling, what you're experiencing right now is like all the stuff that's not working, a gratitude practice is like a natural balm for that. Maybe it's your circle that's around you that is not lighting you up, not encouraging you. And it's infiltrated in some capacity. And so it does start with you to undo that, the vials that we were looking at. So it's like we were checking all of them, we were holding all of them up to the light. So we've settled on one of them and we're like, yes, like we finally have whatever the toxin is. Instead of blowing the whole thing up and infecting the whole lab with this toxin, it's like, let's encase it. We're taking it out. We've identified the thing. We want to get rid of it, but like we got to put it somewhere else that it's not going to blow up and wreak havoc on our community, our family, our friends, or the planet. Like, how do we properly dispose of it? I'm seeing like writing, it's not exactly a letter, but it feels like it's a label or it's like the warning sign, like writing like the hazard sign that gets put on like the place that it's buried. And it feels like what you're writing on it is like, hey, remember, like, don't dig this up. Honoring, memorializing the thing, the experience, the impact that it had that you will still carry. But if you then add on top of it, oh my gosh, that thing was so horrible, it ruined my life. Now you're carrying a new toxin. So it has to be respected, honored, set aside, having the nice plaque on it. Thank you so much for this experience that had in some ways what felt at the time like negative impacts that caused ripple effects that impacted me, that impacted this person, that situation, that decision making, etc. I recognize and I'm grateful for. It's like you're giving it a eulogy. I am grateful for the lessons that it brought me, the character that it allowed me to build. And I don't need to revisit that chapter because I got the information I needed from it, from my diagnostics, and I am ready to move forward for the new chapter with this information, with that experience behind me, no longer impacting me in the full force as if you were still consuming this toxin, had it in your system, and not impacting anyone else around me. I am getting rid of that as baggage. I am lifting it off of my shoulders, extracting it from my system, putting it over there, saying thank you so much, no more. Childhood trauma, that's a really great example. So it's like that can be tough. That can feel tough to thank the childhood trauma. Thank you for the lessons that you gave me. Thank you for shaping me as a person because I am great in all of these ways. And no more. And no more of carrying that with me in the same way, because you'll never get rid of it. But no longer having it act as a toxin that is infiltrating all of my behaviors, my thoughts, etc. If you choose to do this like eulogy exercise and you want to write it down, then you could fold it up, bury it somewhere. You could burn it. You could like I keep getting something like that, like to really reinforce whatever the release is that you are getting rid of it. So if you bury it, like you're doing what we talked about with the visual, as if it was like a radiating, compound, and you're burying it and you're putting it away somewhere. That it's feeding into the energetic symbolism of this is not for me anymore. I am getting rid of it. I am setting it aside. If you're burning it, it's gone. It's into the ether. Goodbye. Full moon in Cancer. This is so perfect. This is so perfect, y'all. Full moon in Cancer. Let your fears dissolve. Get rid of those toxins, baby. How do I make sure I really surrender it, really release it for real? Not I'm just saying, oh, I know that that's no good for me. I want to get rid of that. No, how do you really release it? If I perform the yoga exercise to confront the toxin and burn the note, will that send it into the ether, reinforcing the cycle to repeat? No. So the idea is that it's getting rid of it fully. So if you're choosing to bury it, it's the thing that's there. What's going to happen once it's buried? If you're burying a piece of paper, okay, eventually it's going to break down. And one could make the argument, oh, well, it's breaking down. Isn't it going into the earth because the worms are eating it and then it's continuing the cycle? Because it's the idea of, matter can't be created or destroyed. You can apply the same logic to if you were burning it. It's like, oh, well, it's going into the air so that other people are inhaling it or whatever it is. That's not really how it's presenting to me. It's either or both of those are like really classic, either manifestation or release tools. So if you're thinking, oh no, it's going to repeat, then it's probably going to repeat if that's the intention that you are infusing into the eulogy. And if you're saying, thank you, no more, I am getting rid of this, and if you believe it, it is true. And that's how energy is responding. If you leave the cracked door open for it to not be true, for it to come back, you're not affording yourself the resolve that you deserve in the proper disposal. The first reading was flipping through books. This is the learning energy. You're learning something brand new to you. Could be enrolling in a program, could be taking a class, could be reading a book, listening to a webinar, podcast, whatever it is. New information, different topic to expand your knowledge base. Making sure you throw that bookmark in every once in a while because it's important to pause. It's important to go back to what you've read thus far. Make sure you really have it before you move on, before you take in more information. Suggested topics for this learning, unless we're talking about a specific program, you already know what it is. If you're not sure what it is, it felt like for a chunk of the group, we were looking at relationships. So not you in relationships, but just relationship dynamics, friendships, partnerships, family, parent-child, if you're the parent, whatever that is. Also, I was getting something about housing, so maybe like a realtor, people thinking about like studying for something like that, law, being a lawyer, similarly, familiarizing yourself with this new area of knowledge and insights because you were preparing for your next chapter. This was last quarter moon in Aquarius. Reflect on your priorities. It's making learning, it's making discovering knowledge, preparing for that new chapter, giving your sense of self fulfillment. Maybe you're someone who has put learning to the wayside, making it a priority again. Start learning again and set up that new system. Aquarius, very system oriented, but it's how do we make a new system, a better system that will help people. That's reading number 1. Much shorter than reading number 2, which was extraction. You're extracting some sort of a toxin out. You're running diagnostics in the labs. You're doing a food log if you are in the health wing, or you're literally getting tests done. You are checking in what is the thing. So it's the disease, the food, the allergen, carcinogen, whatever it is that is negatively impacting me that I have to get rid of. I want to get rid of. There's that part. And then there's also a little bit more of the metaphorical side. Are my basic needs just not being met? And so it's causing this reaction of me feeling imbalanced, irritable, emotions are heightened towards the quote unquote negative. So angry, frustrated, exhausted, overwhelmed, confused, disoriented. That is caused by something. It's either caused by whatever this toxin is that we're talking about, the experience that's on the health side, or something a little bit more metaphorical, needs not being met, voice not being heard, not getting enough sleep, not drinking enough water, stuck in more of a negative mindset. So we're talking about the gratitude practice, which is the first card. Last quarter moon in Sagittarius, practice gratitude. So if you're in this negative mindset, if you are ruminating on this toxin, however it's presenting for you, however it's impacting your life, you're not going to get out of it unless you can say, thank you, no more. I'm going to get rid of it. I appreciate how you've made me learn, you've made me grow, you've made me think about things differently, you helped me build some character, you've helped me meet people, develop relationships, get rid of relationships, whatever it is. However, it has to stop somewhere, and I can't carry the toxin, direct toxin with me. I can carry the lessons, but I can no longer carry this toxin with me anymore. It is time to get rid of it through disposal. We talked about doing a eulogy. You could literally write a eulogy for whatever this toxin is that is in your life, writing a eulogy down. You could bury it like the disposal of the radioactive compounds. You could light it on fire, get rid of it. You're doing release exercises. You're saying goodbye. Do not need this burden to weigh down my shoulders anymore. I am moving forward into a new chapter, and I am full moon in Cancer, letting my fears dissolve, letting the toxin dissipate. When I trust that it will go away, it can go away because I'm not letting it hold on to me anymore. I am actively releasing it. Both of them were talking about relationships with something. With the second reading, we're at the center. So it's like, what is what's happening or what has happened to me or the thing that is in me or the thing that I am choosing to continue to engage with? How is that living within me? How is that hurting me? Which then impacts other people. And then how do I make sure that when I get rid of it, I'm not impacting other people? And for the first one, it was like, hey, what's going on with stuff that's out there? Because I want to use that. I want to understand it. Oh, this is a great way to explain how they're related. The first one, you're choosing to take something in. And in the second one, you're choosing to get rid of something. That's the answer. So if you are somebody, also absolute duh here, this eclipse season. Eclipses are representing beginnings and endings. That is what we are doing. In this first reading, this is a beginning. We're saying new information. Tell me how I start my next chapter. The second reading is like, this chapter is closing ASAP. Goodbye. I'm done with this book. I am tired of it. The plot sucked. But you know what? I'm grateful for the journey because there was a roller coaster, but it has a satisfying conclusion, which is I'm finding out there's a sequel and I get to write that sequel. So the tail end of the second reading is you're gearing up to also have a new beginning. So I would say there could be some people here who, if you have both of them happening at the same time, it's possible that you do the shedding work, getting rid of the toxin, eulogizing, etc., and then you can feel like you have more space to lean into now the new thing that you want to learn. When you get rid of the baggage, if you will, the thing that's occupying you, that's making you feel disoriented, when you have a clearer mind, you can actually sit and learn and focus. So there could be some people where you have reading 2 that goes actually into reading number 1, so almost like a reversal here. You also could have, you're just learning the entire week, and maybe the things that you are learning are directly in relation to, like, they're supportive of the things that you are going to dissolve, that you're going to get rid of. So if you were learning about relationships, maybe your toxin is in your relationships. So you are learning about it. You're getting yourself educated. You have this information. You have an aha moment. And you go, oh my gosh, that's my toxin. This is how it's presenting for me. I have to get rid of it. So that could be 1 going into 2 or them overlapping. So that's just a off the dome example. But there are definitely ways that I think these can be in parallel, that they can piggyback on each other, and they are for sure exemplifying this beginning and ending energy. And yeah, this feels like it's just a big week here. We got some stuff happening. Yeah, thank you for joining. Have a wonderful rest of your week. There's some heavy stuff going on. Let me know how your eulogy went when you do it, if you do it. And yeah, otherwise just try to take it easy. Try to figure out what that toxin is. Get some remedies in the queue. Do your learning if that's the thing you're doing this week. And make sure to take breaks.